So let's see.
What are we watching? We are going to watch Charlie. Charlie. If I can, where is the screen? Let's go to Candy Mountain, Charlie. Go to Candy Mountain. All right. Let us begin, because such is life. I only get so much time to stream. So Charlie, or Moist Critical, or Penguin Zero, is talking about a gun that has a huge problem. Let's learn.
I saw something super interesting today that I want to yap about. It's become somewhat of a big conversation even outside of these bubbles that I'm tapped into, because even people that know nothing about guns can recognize that there's something wrong with this little puppy here. It's the SIG P320. This puppy's got a real nasty reputation developing. It's got the cheese touch. People talking about it being stinkier than Sir Strumming. I was going to lore dump on you, and I had even made this video setting all of the groundwork and the foundation for everything that had been happening with the P320 up until this point. But I want to show you the video that's sparked this topic for me today that I want to talk about. It's got a lot of people talking.
Through the firing sequence, through the actual movement of the sear down.
Why is there a nail?
1 millimeter. And we're gonna see if it'll set the cartridge off. I don't know, we'll try it a couple times. It might not. This safety might be working, but the other safeties might not have been. So let's see. And if you touch the slide, let's see if we can touch the slide and get it to go off. We have it staged at 1 millimeter or less as measured on the table. So this is just a guesstimate. And if we put some input into the slide somewhere, will it go off again? Will it release?
Why is there a nail? Oh!
Now, without knowing any of the context for why he's...
It removes the trigger's wiggle zone, so there is no human error. Oh, okay.
doing this experiment in the first place, there's been a lot of confusion from people that don't know anything about the P320, wondering why he put a screw there. Why did he fucking MacGyver this handgun and make it fire?
Well, he's about to answer my question. Let's go.
You know, fondling the slide. There's a lot of people that clearly didn't watch the full video where he explains that, and they do not know about the P320's history and everything going on with that handgun in particular. So now they're just passing this off as like worthless or a useless experiment that demonstrates nothing and proves nothing, saying like, the trigger is fully engaged, so of course he's up there cranking on the slide like I jerk my dick, it's gonna go off, it makes sense. And yeah, I guess that thought does make sense if you're a resident of Stupidville. This shouldn't happen, and it doesn't happen for most guns, but the P320 has been in some serious hot water for alleged uncommanded discharges and a lot of incidents around this gun.
Well, if you have the gun safety on, it's not supposed to fire, like at all.
Like while in its holster and such.
Right.
Including the recent death of a 21
What? Hold on, wait.
year-old airman, where it is reported that this firearm discharged, and according to leaked reports, now again, these are unconfirmed reports, but according to the leaked reports, the handgun was holstered on a desk and then went off, killing him. It is a problem that has been reported for a long time. And this YouTuber...
It just, like, what? It was just sitting there on the desk? What? And just, like, out of nowhere, it was like, you know what? F you in particular. I'm just going to shoot you right now. This could have been me. Not all pistols have safeties. Think of the children. But unironically, this sketchy. Like, what the frick? Some guns are really sensitive and could have been through vibrations. Oh my god. You're just freaking sitting there dying of heat, and you have like a little desk fan, and you decide to turn it on, and then the gun is like, F you! And it shoots. What the frick?
Wyoming Gun Project
That's
just did a video kind of breaking down, can this gun fire without the trigger being pulled? And I think he did a beautiful job at demonstrating that, and we'll get into the screw and the millimeter that he's talking about there in a moment, but I want you to understand that this is a big problem. And the company themselves said under no circumstances can this gun fire without a trigger pull, yet it is provable and repeatable that it...
Bro, you have literal videos showing that it's shooting. Like, hello?
Indeed can. There's even been a push to...
You literally have like videos showing you that the gun is shooting on its own, and then you're gonna sit there and be like, Nah, it doesn't do that. No, they must have had like some kind of like invisible string attached to it, and they pulled the string and it pulled the trigger.
Stop using this weapon in an official capacity due to how dangerous
Of course,
it could
it's
be.
in Florida.
It's a widely reported problem, apparently linked to more than 100 incidents since 2016, with at least 80 injuries. Even in my neck of the woods here in Tampa,
How are they even still selling them?
officer in 2020 had the weapon fire while in his jacket while he was adjusting it.
Oh my
so dude up here
God.
just like fucking popping his collar on the jacket or something, fires the handgun, which reportedly shattered his ankle. There are tons of
Oh
cases
my
that
God.
have been reported, and SIG has actually filed a lawsuit trying to like reverse the ban on this weapon from law enforcement, which I think is a horrible look from SIG, by the way. This is just a big safety concern across the board, and it's something that's been talked about quite a bit for a while now. But yesterday, this video came out from Wyoming Gun Project, and now I just really want to talk about it today because I think it is so interesting and pretty scary.
Basically,
They don't want the fallout of all the potential deaths and lawsuits to be on them? No, of course not. But how the frick do you sit there and watch a video of your gun going off, but then you're like, nah, it don't do that.
we were able to input
Don't do
a
that.
millimeter or less of downward movement on the sear and get this slide. By manipulating the slide, we were able to get it to go off and actually fire a primed case 5 times in a row.
That's the whole experiment here in a nutshell. Inputting a millimeter or less of downward movement on the trigger past the pre-travel, and then manipulating the slide in any way. It didn't have to be like hands, by the way. Like the real world application would be if for some reason that trigger
This
was
is like literally a trigger happy gun.
engaged a millimeter or less past the pre-travel, and then you put it in your holster, it would go off. That is answering the question that people have wanted an answer to for a while. How could the P320 fire
Wow.
uncommanded? And his experiment aimed to try and solve that, to figure out how it could happen. Now, this isn't some like really wacky specific set of circumstances that are just astronomical odds of happening. Like, this isn't unfathomable. A millimeter? That's nothing. That's like the size of Ant-Man's erect nipples when he shrinks himself down to an atomic size. A millimeter or less of movement past the pre-travel, that is something that can very realistically happen over time. Like build up in there. There are so many things that could contribute to that happening,
God.
which is probably why there are so many reported incidents of this discharging uncommanded.
I have seen some other videos where people have taken their SIG, they've engaged the trigger just a tiny bit and touched the slide, and it's gone off. Now, I just did that.
Now put your
Right
hand
there.
in front of
This
it.
was the experiment people were doing
My God.
prior to Wyoming Gun Project, where they would lightly pull the trigger, not fully engaging it.
Like, I'm not even gonna lie, it is actually like a shitty looking gun too. It looks kind of shitty. Doesn't even look
but
cool.
lightly pulling it and then tapping the slide, and it would go off. But that's
Looks
an
like a gun
experiment
you'd
that
get from the
obviously
dollar store or
isn't
something.
the most reliable, because you never really know. Maybe you put more pressure than you thought, and it was a little too up for interpretation whether or not it was a trigger pull and such. So it
Even sounds like a gun you would get from the dollar store.
wasn't the most reliable demonstration, and instead Wyoming Gun Project went the extra step of showcasing how it can fire without your finger even being near the trigger, if there is just that millimeter or less worth of movement past the pre-travel.
So I tried to figure out a way, like, how can we come up with a way where we can gradually increase the pressure on the trigger
He keeps putting his hand in front of it. It's making me nervous. Making me nervous.
to the point where this play in this slide makes a difference? Because this is, none of my other guns do this. And for control, let me just show you another handgun that does not do this. This is a Taurus G3. Look how much play is
That
in this
looks
slide.
like such a better gun.
Like literally none.
I found that to be pretty weird with how much the slide moves when you slightly manipulate it, like fucking doing sock puppets on the slide, has it bouncing up and down like
Taurus
it's getting
is
hit
great.
with raging wind gusts during a hurricane. I don't know if that's normal for the wobbliness to be set to.
The fact this company produces pistols for our military? What? You would think they would go through like a shit ton of freaking like analyzing and experimenting and testing before they put something like that out there.
Wumbo
What the
or
hell?
what? But I've never seen it in any of the handguns I've shot either. So like, for example, this is just a Springfield XD. And if you go to like move the slide, there's not even like the slightest give in it at all. But again, maybe that's common in
Charlie just casually freaking pulling out a gun.
some way.
Holy
but I'm certainly
moly.
pretty unfamiliar with a slide moving like that.
Now, why is that important? That is important because the striker mechanism is in the slide, and the sear and FCU is in the frame. So any up and down
My
movement
God, can't believe he was giving us the middle finger.
affects the engagement of the sear and the striker hook. In case somebody doesn't know, this is pre-travel on a trigger or free play. Nothing is happening here. No firing process is starting at all. When it hits that wall, that's when it will start lowering the sear.
A super solid explanation on why the movement of that slide is so odd, and then he explains the pre-travel. Then he measures the pre-travel, and then he puts in the screw being his way of fine-tuning the amount of movement that he could get past the trigger wall. And in this case, it would go off with as little as less than a millimeter worth.
Let's see if we can get it off by just touching, or if we can release the striker by just touching the slide. Now, I'm not touching it with my finger.
Your hand in front of it.
How about that? So this was less than a millimeter, so we'll assume the one that is at 1 millimeter will go off. Okay? So let's try it. That time it didn't. And
Oh my God.
Did. So that's kind of simulating
okay. He's just listening for the air, basically.
In a cop's holster.
Not a whole lot of movement required to have this go off by just having the slide be bumped or moved or in some way jostled around. That's a big concern. And then he addresses people that inevitably ended up talking about like the screw being there. Like, oh, it's just a full trigger pull with the screw. This doesn't really prove anything. I think he gives a good explanation on why the screw doesn't matter. It's there just to simulate what could happen should a millimeter worth of movement happen to the trigger, which again is something that can very easily happen.
I'm gonna get some jerk off that comes in these comments go, well, just don't stick a screw in your trigger. This is a tool to simulate, to take the human factor out so that you sane people that will come.
I didn't think it was loaded, but I thought that that even if it's not loaded and the shot comes out, like it would be like a pretty nasty burst of air or something on your hand and hurt. I don't know. I don't know how guns work, okay? I don't know when they're not loaded anyway. I thought it would still hurt.
Come into my comments and say this. Aren't going, you pulled the trigger with your finger, bro. I didn't. The FBI report said there was a ledge on, it was either the sear or the striker hook. I don't remember. And you pulled the trigger a little bit, less than a millimeter, less than 1 millimeter.
Wow.
And it caught on that ledge. And then you holstered your gun. Okay, this is a G-code holster. Then you holstered your gun.
Bam!
And it just went off.
I think that right there really showcases it extremely well. Also, there are some holsters that do have like a reported issue where when you holster it, like depending on the angle, sometimes it can actually depress the trigger slightly. So if you happen to have one of those holsters and happen to put it in at that angle, and the SIG P320, the trigger gets depressed a little bit, a millimeter past the pre-travel, it could just go off in your holster.
Holy
like that is
shit.
an issue.
I own a Type 94 Nambu that's safer than that thing. I don't know. I feel like anything would be safer than this thing.
I could set this
What
on
the hell?
on the desk and bang the desk and see if it'll. Now the camera's gonna shake. So, whoa! Let's see what we got here. Did it go off? Sure did. Look at that. So how could he set it on the desk and it go off? I just showed you right there. Again, this is simulating what the FBI found as a shelf on either the sear or the striker hook, and it getting caught up on that, or maybe you're putting input on the trigger and you've only gone less than a millimeter through the firing sequence, through the actual movement of the sear down is less than 1 millimeter. and we're going to see if it'll set the cartridge off. I don't know. We'll try it a couple times. It might not. This safety might be working.
Like, for anyone in the comments being like, well, don't put a screw in the gun then. Well, what if you did this with other guns? It probably wouldn't do this.
The
Because
other
that's the
safeties
point.
might not have been. So let's see.
Oh!
It is pretty crazy to see the desk demonstration there with just how little has to be exerted on it for it to discharge once there is that teensy tiny tiddlywink of movement past the trigger wall. Now, of course, I don't think this is going to happen all the time to every P320 out there, but the fact that it can happen at all is concerning. It is clearly an issue based on the numerous reported incidents, all of these alleged incidents with this weapon. It proves that there are a lot of circumstances that lead to that little amount of movement there, and it's causing it to discharge uncommanded. And it is something that needs some big looking into and maybe a little sprucing up, because it is seemingly responsible for numerous injuries and, at least in one case, a death. So I just found this to just be an interesting topic and a really great video from Wyoming Gun Project. Again, I recommend you check out the full thing. That's really about it. So yeah.
The Type 94 is notorious for its exposed fire sear that makes it easy to accidentally discharge. But I have to put a good bit of pressure on the sear to get it to fire like that. Yeah, this one apparently is like 1 millimeter or less to have it happen. Holy crap. Holy crappers. That's kind of scary. That is kind of scary. So everyone stay away from the SIG P, whatever the frick this is called. Do not get the SIG P320. Nuh-uh. Don't do it.